Today I'm going to show you my favorite cast-on technique, the double twist loop cast-on. This is my most frequently used cast-on for a few reasons. For one, the way I do it, it's very fast, so when I'm wanting to swatch something quickly, it's the one I use to get things on the needles and get knitting. It's also what I call a low-profile cast-on, which means it doesn't take up much space and you don't have to count it as your first row of knitting, and I like that in a cast-on. It's very stretchy, which makes it suitable for top-down socks and mitten cuffs, and it's incredibly versatile. You can use it to add stitches in the middle of a row or at the end of a row, and it blends nicely into the knitting when you do this. I also like it because I work it with my right hand. I gravitate towards cast-ons where the work is done with the right hand because this makes more sense to me as a right-handed person. There is a more standard way to work this cast-on with the yarn in your left hand, but I find the maneuver more fiddly than this nice smooth twist motion. A couple of caveats before I get to the technique. As I'll demonstrate, it's not a very stable cast-on. That is, you want to be careful knitting that first row as the loops have a tendency to stretch out between stitches if they get pulled too much. You can correct this with blocking, but I like to avoid it completely by keeping my needles close together and my tension quite strict knitting the first row. Once that first row is in place, you can let your knitting breathe again. For this reason, when I'm working in the round, I usually knit the first row flat after using this cast-on, and then join in the round. So let's talk about how to do it. I start with a needle in my left hand to receive the stitches. I hold the tail of the yarn in my left hand as well to keep it taut. Holding the working yarn with my right hand, I bring the forefinger of my right hand under the yarn, over and around to create a twist, then twist again. I then slip the stitch from my finger onto the needle and pull the working yarn to tighten it, and repeat the process. Let's watch that in slow motion. The forefinger goes under the yarn, over and around, then twists again to form the double twist. As you can imagine, the fluidity of this motion means that with practice you can eventually cast on stitches incredibly quickly. Now I'm going to knit the first row, and you'll notice that particularly between stitches, I keep my needles very close together. That's because, as you'll see here, the loop can stretch quite a bit in between stitches if you're not careful. This will cause the cast-on edge to have a distorted loop that you will later have to block to correct, which is not impossible to do, it's just an extra thing to remember when you're finished and blocking your project normally. On the next row, I'm going to show you how to use this technique to add a stitch, or increase one stitch, in the middle of a row. Simply knit to the spot where you need the increase, and with the working yarn in your right hand, repeat the cast-on motion, under, over, and around, and twist again. This time, however, slip the stitch onto the right hand needle. Then continue to knit. Here's the process again. When I turn the work, I'm also going to increase a couple of stitches at the end of the row. This I do exactly as you would for the cast-on, slipping the stitches onto the left-hand needle. But you could do this before you turn the work as well. It works either way. I'll knit the next few rows in stockinette stitch so that you have a clearer view of the cast-on edge and the places where I made the increases. Now you can see above the loops of the cast-on edge the places where I increased a stitch in the middle of the row, and also the extra stitches I added on the end of the last row, making this little tab at the edge here. So there you have the double twist loop cast-on. I hope you found this video helpful and that you find it a useful tool to add to your knitting arsenal. You'll find the video transcript below in the description, as well as information about the yarn and needles I'm using in the video. Thanks for watching.